What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down why the market saw some interesting volatility, a big shift in Donald Trump's policies for tariffs that caused the market to bounce a bit, and what could be panning out on the charts moving forward as buyers are trying to reverse this market. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. This offer ends at the end of March, so please check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about the market right now. So we had a very, very interesting day. Looking at the charts, you guys could quite clearly see that we started off with this big sell-off on SPY, right? We got this sell-off. I gave you guys a warning in the morning about how we had big data coming that could have led to that because of the fact that our data was known for causing more volatility. And I did mention to you all that I was still looking for a reversal as long as we held 572 to 568. Then I mentioned to you all that Donald Trump had a new tariff deal coming, and we had some nice setups throughout the market, which should have caused a bounce. And as a result, we got this bounce. So we called both directions quite correctly. But the question is, what's going to happen from this point on? So I'm going to give you guys more insights about the charts a little bit later into this video. But for now, we are seeing buyers trying to defend. And there's a good chance that in less than a week from now, the market's going to be a lot higher. I'll break down exactly why that is. But first off, what's happening with Donald Trump and the tariffs? What's happening to the markets? We saw a market-wide bounce. If you look at Tesla, it's up 2.6%. Amazon and many retail are in the green. Many tech stocks from Google, Nvidia, many of the Mag 7 are in the green as well. Only Apple is a bit flat because of negative news. And overall, we're seeing a lot more green than red, so it's pretty good so far. The first thing worth mentioning is we had the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick coming out, and he mentioned that Donald Trump may announce some relief tariffs on Mexico and Canada as soon as today. He kept on saying that on Bloomberg TV, and he was correct. We did get some relief. Maybe it wasn't as much as what people were hoping for, but it was something, and this is what helped the market bounce to some extent. So what did Donald Trump say? What is this relief? Let's talk about this, and I'll break down more details. So the first thing you have to remember is that we have to go back one day, okay? Yesterday, the market sold off very hard because Donald Trump announced he wanted to increase tariffs to 25% on Mexico and Canada, and he also wanted to increase tariffs by an additional 10% on China. That caused this big dump right over here. Don't forget there was also like 10% tariffs on Canadian energy, so that's why we saw this big dump in the markets. But then there was all this talk about Donald Trump potentially pushing them back. But this is what happened so far. So Donald Trump agreed to delay some tariffs for vehicles built in North America, at least some of them, after a call with the CEOs of GM and Ford and the chair of Stellantis. That's what the White House said on Wednesday. That's a big piece of news. The automakers had urged Donald Trump to waive the 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada and vehicles that comply with the 2020 US Mexico Canada agreements rules of origin. That's a very, very big new rule that came out. Whatever complies with that now is going to be able to see delayed tariffs. The move is going to benefit a lot of U.S. automakers and foreign automakers that are in compliance. And then these are the quotes from the White House press secretary. She said that we are going to give a 1-month exemption to any autos coming through the USMCA, so they are not at a disadvantage. And then they also said that reciprocal tariffs are coming into effect as soon as April 2nd. Automakers are also offering to boost U.S. investments, but once again, the certainty about the tariffs are to be noted and decided. On April 2nd, they could be imposing more tariffs on the U.S. auto production, so we'll see about that. But for now, there's a bit of a delay. So that is a good news for a lot of those automakers. This is good so far for them. As long as they're in compliance with these rules, they're going to be qualifying for the delay in tariffs. And that's just the start of it so far. And then you also have another piece of news with Trudeau. This is the Prime Minister of Canada. Him and Donald Trump were speaking together on a phone call for about 50 minutes, apparently, and they were discussing a lot of issues and trade. I don't think they came to a consensus yet, but they are still working towards it because you have to think about this in a very objective manner, okay? The U.S., we are dependent on a lot of different countries for getting particular goods. But don't forget that that just makes up a smaller percentage of our GDP. Now, for Canada and Mexico, they are more dependent on the US because more than 70% of their exports actually go to the US in itself. So these tariffs will have a big effect on them. And that's the reason why they are very open to trying to comply with Trump to try to get him to lower them, delay things, because it really affects their economy. So yes, it affects consumers and it affects all these importers and exporters. It affects businesses and everyone involved, but it has a profound effect on Canada and Mexico. So they are in a very, very good situation where they want to, negotiate, see if there could be more compliance, and try to get Trump to agree with a lot of different things. But obviously, Trump is very, I would say, cantankerous. He's going to be continuing to argue. He's not going to budge easily with these. That's what he said already. So it's very important that they continue to negotiate, and they're very, very wary of this. It's going to be very important for them. With that being said, that is what Trudeau has been up to. So far, we're not seeing any other major changes, but there could be more to come in the future. And as a result of these changes, the market's trying to bounce a bit, and we're getting some good signals that could suggest more upside is going to be coming. Now, there's going to be some big catalysts to affect this. So just keep in mind that as time goes on, we also happen to have more data. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, March 6th, 2025. 1 hour before the stock market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have initial jobless claims coming out, and then we have more jobs numbers, which could cause some volatility. Much of it is very, very minor. It's not that crazy. And then we have some bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. that could cause a bit more volatility with Fed speakers such as like Waller and Bostic giving speeches. So nothing too crazy tomorrow, but keep in mind that tomorrow is going to be the calm before the storm because Friday is going to be a crazy day. On Friday, we have very, very important unemployment numbers coming out. Then we also have the big guy Jerome Powell giving a speech that could also cause a big move in the markets. So get ready, guys. This is going to be very impactful for the way that things are going to be moving. Now, to add on to this, I just want to say that the fear and greed index is currently at extreme fear so far. We're still seeing a lot of fear that's perpetuating. We're not completely in greed yet. And this does open the door for more upside after so much downside that came, at least for the short term, right? I'm not saying the market's going to squeeze to new highs or rally insanely hard. This could just be a temporary bounce, but there is going to be future downside after that, which I will talk about later. Momentum is currently at extreme fear that's making up the majority of sentiments, but this is shifting a bit because of the fact that we're seeing the market losing the 125 daily moving average, and that typically doesn't happen. Usually there's a lot of buyers that want to defend us and get us back above there, so that's a good sign so far. The put to call option ratio is going up. There's still a lot of puts being bought. Volatility, the VIX is at fear. It used to be at extreme fear. Now it's just at fear because there is a drop rate here. We're seeing a little bit less fear as it's starting to like subside just a little bit. So we'll see if that remains or not. That's what we're seeing so far. And then one last thing about the markets. Let me just say that we have some important earnings coming out. So today we just had some retail, nothing too crazy. Tomorrow we have JD in the morning, but then after the market closes tomorrow, we have Costco. So keep in mind, Costco is going to be a big one. So get ready for their earnings. It's going to cause more volatility. With that being said, guys, what do I see from the market from this point on? What do I think is going to happen? We're going to break down a lot more details. So starting off with SPY, okay? When you look at the bigger time frames, we're technically on a downtrend, but we're showing signs that we want to bottom as we have like a double bottom here, and we're seeing buyers trying to bring us up on the 4-hour time frame. For confirmation, you want to see us break 585, but what is very good about this is when you zoom in, we have this inverse head and shoulders that's been developing, and this typically suggests there's going to be more upside coming. So, SPY was at like 598 just a couple of days ago, right? Just a couple of days ago, it wasn't that far back. We were actually at 598. We saw a big bounce on Monday. And since then, we've been actually developing an inverse head and shoulders, which is a very, very good sign. So if you're bearish on SPY, I'm going to make this very, very clear and very easy to understand, and I'll break down what my prediction is. You want to see SPY essentially push this resistance at 585, then get a big rejection there, and then fail to hold 578. If that's the case, we will turn back down towards this blue trend line. That's going to be our next support around that 572 area. Very close to where we dipped today. That's the more bearish case, losing this 578 area. Okay. The bullish case is going to be that we break 585 for confirmation, then we eventually try to start pushing for like 594 at the very least. That's my next target. If we end up breaking past 585 and we hold above it, I think we could be pushing for 594 to complete the inverse head and shoulders. So what is more likely to happen, right? You want to see if we break 585 for confirmation, but one thing I want to say is that there's a possibility we are going to get a breakout soon, but it's not going to happen immediately. We might see SPY tomorrow try to retest 585, maybe come back down to this yellow trend line around 580 and just kind of consolidate a bit before a potential squeeze later on by Friday to push up for that 594 target. We could be making a move like this just for confirmation, because after so much upside, we got a very, very nice pump from 572 all the way up to about 585. We're at a very, very tough resistance near 585. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some consolidation first before we try to break out higher. But this chart does look a bit more bullish on the smaller time frames, especially thanks to this inverse head and shoulders. You could even argue that this is shifting a little bit. What if now, like, this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and then this is like a right shoulder that's going to form before we get that breakout? But nonetheless, we do look more bullish. We are favoring that even if we consolidate a bit, we should be pushing for 594 on the 30 minutes time frame. On the 4 hour, we're seeing the same thing developing as we're trying to hold these supports. So when you zoom out of SPY, it's very simple. I hope you guys could see this quite clearly. Let me actually close this for just a second just to make this a little bit bigger. Notice that we had this blue trend line as our support. We had this yellow trend line as support. So we had this channel on SPY. We broke out of this, re-entered the channel. We broke through this, then rejected. We were trying to hold this yellow line. We bounced off of this, then we rejected into the blue line right here. This was our next support zone. So we saw liquidity being grabbed right here, and then we got back above the yellow support. So that's a good sign that we're trying to reclaim the support. I just want to see us break 585 to remain more bullish. And if anything, I do lean more in that direction. So my prediction is there might be some consolidation between 585 and 580, but ultimately I think that within 2 to 3 days, within less than a week for sure is what I presume, we're going to be looking for SPY to push back up to 594 plus as the most likely possibility. Don't be surprised if we see some consolidation first, but there's going to likely be more upside as long as we make a higher low. We're going to likely try pushing for the 590 soon, especially with a lot of fear subsiding. I also think that the QQQ is due for a bounce. If you guys look at the chart on the QQQ, we've been making lower highs and lower lows for quite a while. But what's good about this is the fact that we're showing signs that we want to base. You guys can even see the pattern right here on the 4 hour. We have like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. It looks even better on our 30 minutes time frame because you guys can see quite clearly there's a very, very nice looking symmetrical inverse head and shoulders, which is easily going to be favoring a pushback up to about 512 pretty fast. We have a left shoulder, a head, and then this right shoulder. So if you're a bear, you need to see us lose 495 then 492. If we get a big rejection and lose that support zone, especially 492, then yes, we're dumping right back down. If we don't do that, if we end up breaking this resistance at 503, if this high breaks, I think we could easily push for 506 and eventually to about 512. So I think there's a good chance we do try to push higher like this. But just like SPY, I think that there could be a little consolidation here as we retest our support at 496 to 500 for some time like this before Thursday comes and we finally start pushing for 506, then eventually back up towards this high right here at this 512 area. So there might be consolidation first and then a breakout, but either way, we still look a bit more bullish to me. We're also going to be looking at this support right here like this. This can be like our next support. If we dip here, we consolidate, then we start breaking out. But nonetheless, the chart looks bullish. For the Russell 2000, when you zoom out and go to like our 4 hour time frame right over here, let me just fix this for 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. I think that we're looking more bullish because we had this previous resistance, which is now where we're trying to fight at, and we're trying to bounce from here. If you take a look at our indicators, such as like our RSI and many of our others, you can see the 4 hours trying to get a PPO crossover. And as we've been dipping, we've been forming a bullish divergence. So I think there's a slight bullish divergence on this, which typically signifies that there's going to be more upside coming, at least in the future. And then it's also because of the fact that we're attempting to reclaim our key trend lines. So that's a relatively good sign. Zooming into the 30 minutes time frame, just keep in mind that we have this very nice looking inverse head and shoulders. As long as the structure holds, we are looking a bit more bullish to me. So from how I see things, okay, we have this left shoulder here. We have a head, then we have a potential right shoulder, and then that could be favoring a pushback up to about that 212 area. There's a good chance it's going to try to play out like this. Could we consolidate first? Could we see a consolidation phase? In the beginning, it's always a possibility, right? We could be looking at key fib retracement zone first before we attempt to get back up to our 200 EMA, and I think there's a good chance we try to do that. So we do look a bit more bullish to me. On ES, I think that it's going to be more applicable for me to go to the 4 hour for this one because when you look at this, this is what it's looking like, right? We had this support here. We had this channel. We bounced, broke out of the channel. retested this, broke out of this, and came back. But notice that we have this line right here. See this line? We're holding this very, very nicely on ES, and that's a very, very good sign. Looking at our indicators, our 4 hours looking a bit more bullish. We're showing some life right here. And I like the fact that we are nearing a bullish cross in the PPO. Nice double bottom. However, when you zoom in, you will see the same pattern as SPYs. There's a nice inverse head and shoulders right here, whether it's slanted like this, or if this is like our head and this is like the left shoulder. It's very possible we make a move like this where we kind of consolidate, make a move down like this, consolidate. As long as we don't lose this trend line, we could eventually try to break our 200 EMA at 58.80. If that's the case, we're looking for an attempt to push to about 59.50 very, very soon for a nice rebound move by Friday. So there's a very, very good chance it's going to try to bounce very, very soon. So we look good on ES. Might see some consolidation and a bounce. I want to see us break 58.80 for confirmation to push for the 59.50s, but we look more bullish nonetheless. On NQ, I like the fact that we have a inverse head and shoulders as well. So you guys can see it right here. Left shoulder, head, and then a right shoulder. And then when you go back on the chart, what you'll see is that we have this resistance. The blue trend line is resistance becoming support, and that's almost where we ended up bouncing at. So nice confluence right over there. So I think that if we could break past 20,625, there's a good chance we might try to go a little bit higher and start pushing for 21,000, just like that by like Friday, if not by early next week. We might get a little bit of consolidation first. So let me redraw this. Just like ES might consolidate a bit before it continues to break out, but it still will be pushing for 21,000 most likely. For Bitcoin, we're looking bullish. Why? Well, look at this. We have this trend line. We bounced, came back down to it. We're bouncing, so it's doing a good job so far. It also looks bullish as I speak. We'll see if we get a dip move before it tries to push for 93,000. So far, we're looking like we're trying to relieve. Pretty good so far. Nvidia looks good. We got a decent close. However, when you zoom in a little bit like this, what you'll see is that this also resembles a left shoulder heading to the right shoulder, or even like a reversal structure. Looks pretty good, but I want to see it break 120 just for confirmation. We're in a range between 115 and 120 for now. So it might consolidate a bit like this before it tries to break to 120. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially this imbalance over here. Around 123.5 is coming next. So it looks a bit more bullish to me. Tesla's looking decent. However, I want to say one thing about Tesla. The news is not that good for it. We saw their German sales decline again. The Chinese made EV sales are declining for Tesla as well. Not too much good news is coming out. Despite that, there is some good news I have, at least from a technical basis. So there's a downtrend on Tesla, but notice we're at this big yellow trend line right now. We're actually trying to hold this support. Previous resistance becoming support around the 260s is what's trying to hold Tesla up. And then what is good, at least from a technical basis, is the fact that we are starting to develop a nice bullish divergence. So if you look at the MACD, there's a bullish divergence. This is trending upwards as the price was making a lower low. Same thing with the RSI. Hopefully it's not too hard to see. Let me just make this a little easier to see. You guys can see that's the divergence right over there. And we have the same thing kind of like going on right over here. Not bad whatsoever, especially on the RSI, not looking too bad. So anyways, so from what I'm seeing, okay, I think there's a good chance that we do attempt to push a bit on Tesla if we end up holding our support right here. And it's not super strong, but I do see some potential in this because we also happen to have this inverse head and shoulders right here. So that's actually looking quite decent. So from what I'm seeing, this is looking like we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. We're also trying to hold our support. So that's looking pretty good. We could draw this out like this as we have this like left shoulder here, this head, and then this right shoulder. That's going to be our first confluence of us trying to rebound. Our EMAs are starting to trend upwards. As long as we don't lose like 270, I want to see us break essentially 280 at the very least. If we hold above that, I think we easily push for 290. There could be a temporary move up with the broader markets. And then if you go to the 4-hour time frame, the same thing is going on. We look a little bit more decent, trying to get back up to about 285. So I want to see it hold support. As long as it holds, we could be trying to bounce a bit. I want to see us hold above 280, and this could try to push a little bit more. Apple's looking decent. Not that great, though. We did see a big sell-off, but we lost this yellow trend, which is not a good sign. We held this bounced, we held this and bounced many times for many weeks, but in this case, we're now below this, so it's not a good sign. However, despite the fact that we sold off, we did see buyers defend Apple at the end of the day. So we formed a bullish divergence on the RSI, but our MACD doesn't show it. And I think that there is a possibility that if we get some kind of retracement here back down to where this wick is right here at like 233, we could attempt to bounce here to try to get back up to 238. To be bullish, you want to reclaim this yellow trend line. For now, there could be an attempt to push higher, and we'll see if we can last and get back above 238. So I'll be watching that very, very closely just for confirmation. With that being said, guys, let's talk about the rest of these. Netflix is looking more decent. It's in a range right now. We want to see it hold above 990. If that's the case, I think 1000 is coming. As long as we don't end up losing 981 and 956, we're favoring 1000 plus. For MSTR, we have like an inverse head and shoulders, like I talked about yesterday. Left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder. We're looking for a test of 316. As long as we don't lose 285 and 300, we're looking for a dip and a push for this imbalance fill around the 316 to 320 area. For Celsius, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're looking to see if we could hold support. I want to see it break 26.5 to turn bullish. We're kind of flat right now, so I expect a little bit more chop for the time being. It's not really fun to play. For Supermicro, we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. If we could break past 41.22, we're looking for 44 as our potential targets. This could try to bounce, but we need confirmation of a break first. So we're not really getting that break yet. We need to see this get back above 41.2 to bounce, and there's some potential. Palantir is looking a little bit more bullish. I think it might be trying to go for 92.7. If we break that, then I think we could be looking for 95, this previous resistance, or previous support becoming resistance at 95 to 96. So there could be a temporary bounce if that holds. For Rivian, we've been on a downtrend, but I want to see if this bullish divergence holds. So if we break 11.59, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 12. I see some potential in this. For SoFi, we have a slight bullish divergence. If we could break past 13.71, we're looking for 14.33. Might be a small bounce here. I could be looking for that, so it has potential. For AMD, we also have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. Not as strong of a setup. We need to get back above at least 101.38. If we hold that, we're looking for 105 for a temporary rebound. No guarantees yet, but there is potential in this. For ARM, we're looking for a test of 127.8. We want to see this continue to uptrend and fill this imbalance. There might be a small push if we break past 125. It's a little bit more bullish looking. On coin, we have like what my friends call like a big George W, because we have a double bottom right here, which is quite decent. I want to see a break of 230. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards this high right here. I would say like 238 could be coming. We have a divergence that's bullish. We're looking pretty good. I want to see us break 230 though, just for confirmation. Amazon has an inverse head and shoulders setup, so it's bullish. I think it's going to eventually revisit 214. May dip here and consolidate for a day or two before it starts pushing for 214. Keep that in mind. For Meta, same thing. Inverse head and shoulders setup. I think it looks better when you zoom in and go to the 30 minutes time frame. So I think that there's a slanted inverse head and shoulders here. As long as you don't lose 650, we're looking for an attempt to get to 660, then eventually 668. So I see some upside there. For Microsoft, same thing, inverse head and shoulders. We're at 400, which is going to be a tough area. We might consolidate here before it starts to break out for 405. For Google, we also have that inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We want to see this break past 176 to really start pushing. It may consolidate, retest 173 and consolidate a bit before it starts pushing for 176 and above. Still has a bullish setup. GameStop's looking bullish. Inverse head and shoulders as well. We might retest 28.9 before it starts breaking out for 25.5. AMC, a little bit more bullish. If we break past 3.08, we're looking for an attempt for 3.14. DJT, you want to see 22.6 break. If that breaks, we're looking for 23. Now the VIX, this is interesting. We have a possible left shoulder, a head, and then what could be like a right shoulder right here, which could be leading to downside. So it might favor that, but we need to see it lose 20.8 to turn more bearish. Overall, it is looking a little bit weaker. This might bounce a bit, causing the market to dip just a little bit before this rejects back down towards our 200 EMA. So that could imply that the market may dip a bit before it bounces higher. The 10-year is still, it's still consolidating. We need to go to our 4-hour time frame to look at this. It's rebounding a bit, but we'll see if we get some kind of rejection. We do have Jerome Powell speaking on Friday, which will affect this. Same thing with the dollar. It's dumping, which is bullish for the markets, at least when it comes to its correlations. That's what I'm seeing for now. So what's going to happen is the market may consolidate just a little bit tomorrow, but then there's a good chance that by Friday, if not by early next week, we try to see a big bounce. With these imbalances to fill with a lot of confluences with lots of big tech stocks looking bullish, the inverse head and shoulders and our 4-hour PPO and the bullish divergences we're seeing on the Qs and the NASDAQ, the market does favor upside a bit more based off these confluences. Could there be a short-term amount of chop and maybe a small little dip? Yeah, it could happen. But I think that ultimately, as time goes on, as we get to Friday, if not by early next week, we should continue to try to break past 585 on SPY and continue this uptrend for the time being. I'm not saying the market's going to be bullish forever. This is just a temporary move. So please keep that in mind. I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Have a good one. I'll be back tomorrow before market open with another update. Until then, take care, guys, and peace out.